All right, folks, let's dive into Chang-sik's story as a grown-up now. After all those wild, creepy things he went through as a kid, life just kind of rolled him into the military. Pretty natural step back then, right? Now, the army in those days wasn't some gentle place like it is today. Oh no, back then it was packed with harsh hazing and tough stuff. Seriously brutal. Chang-sik told me with a laugh, "Forget ghosts, man. The army was way scarier. You'd get chewed out all day long, beaten till you could barely keep your eyes open, and trust me, there's no time left to spot a ghost in that mess." Before shipping out, he was honestly pretty freaked out, worrying he'd see those weird things again. But get this, surprise, surprise, he made it through without any big ghostly run-ins and got discharged safe and sound. Once he was out, Chang-sik figured he'd try his hand at fixing cars. You know how we call it eating oil rice in Korea? Hands deep in grease, sniffing that engine smell. He worked at a garage for a while. Thing is, because the folks there were a tough bunch, real stubborn and prickly types. It's a skilled trade, sure, needing nimble fingers, but it just didn't click with him. By his late 20s, he was like, "All right, I've learned the tricks. I'm done," and walked away from it. Then, thanks to some buddies he'd met in the garage, a new path opened up. Car sales. Yup, he became a salesman peddling shiny new rides. Starting that gig, Chang-sik kept trying to shove all those eerie, ghostly vibes from his childhood way out of his mind. And you know what? It worked. They stopped popping up in front of his eyes for real. Instead, they turned into smells and feelings, lingering in the air. He told me, that's just how it was back then. When he'd sit down with customers, weird stuff started happening. Like, if he caught a whiff of something fishy, bam, turns out the guy ran a butcher shop. Or if he got this vibe like nails on a chalkboard, sure enough, they'd be a teacher. It was so spot on. He'd chuckle to himself, "What am I? Some kind of shaman now?" Every person he talked to had their own scent, he said. Random folks passing by? Nada. But sit down, lock in, and really chat. Being a salesman, you've got to focus on him, right? And then it had hit him. He explained it like this. It's like how shamans, you know, those folks who chat with spirits, don't feel a thing at first, but once they start their thing, they get a read on you. That's how it was for me. Start a convo, and boom, I'd sense something. Every single one, 100 out of 100. Then one day, this woman walks in, looking a bit older than him, and nothing. Zip. No smell, no vibe, not a whisper of a feeling. Chang-sik's like, whoa, this lady's something else. What's her deal? This is wild. Curiosity kicking in, he asked her about her job during the chat, and she goes, "I'm a hairdresser." She ran a little neighborhood salon. They met up a couple more times, sealed the deal on a car, and he got it delivered. All smooth, just like always. After that, he started swinging by her salon regularly, you know, for customer care and all. Back then, it wasn't all about big fancy chains. Nah, it was the era of cozy local spots. Those salons were like the neighborhood hangout, where all the aunties gathered to gossip and chill. So Chang-sik thought, hey, good for business too, and made it his go-to place for haircuts. He'd been popping in for trims, and one day, the hairdresser hands him this little thing. Take this home, light it up at night. It's got oil inside, smells nice, makes everything cozy, she said. He'd seen other aunties snag. One now and then, so he's like, oh sweet, I'll take it, and brought it home. That night, he fires it up, and this warm, candlelight glow fills the room. Chang-sik's no stranger to this. He'd spent a few days at temples here and there, so it felt familiar. Nice vibe, he thought, leaving it on while he went about his evening. But then, bam. First time in his whole life, he gets hit with sleep paralysis. Right after bringing that thing home, he told me, my sleep paralysis? Totally different from what most folks get. Normally you'd freak out like, oh man, is a ghost lurking around? But Chang-sik, he's the guy who senses spirits, and he felt nothing. Usually there's always been some kind of hint, but this time, zilch, and that's what threw him off. It was so weird, he said. This isn't how it's supposed to feel. Nothing's there, so why am I locked up like this? He started overthinking it, wondering, did I mess up somewhere? What's going on? Am I losing it? It kept happening, night after night, and his head was a mess trying to figure it out. Did I stumble into something bad lately? Why is this hitting me? Am I going crazy? All these thoughts, just swirling around. Then one day, he gets this funeral notice. Someone he knew from the car biz had passed. Oh, maybe that's why I've been off, he figured. He rounded up some co-workers saying, let's pitch in a little cash and grab a drink. And off they went to the funeral home. Salesmen like him, they've got that free schedule perk, not your typical 9-to-5 gig, so they rolled up in broad daylight ready to unwind. They kicked back, started drinking, and messed around a bit. It was this big university hospital funeral home, and that's when he spotted her, the salon lady, walking in. Hey, that's her, he thought, watching as she headed not to the condolence area, but somewhere else, deeper inside. A place where they prepped the deceased, fixing up their faces and stuff. Curious as ever, he asked around, and a staffer filled him in. She's a volunteer hairdresser. She cuts hair for folks who've been in the hospital a long time, or the elderly who can't manage it. Keeps them neat, you know, since long hair can look rough. Chang-sik nodded, thinking, wow, she's doing some real good out here. Later that evening, driving by her salon, he saw the lights on and pulled over. Peeking in from the car, traffic was light that night. He spotted her washing something over by the shampoo sinks. Man, she's living 2 days in one, he mused. Volunteering all day, running the salon, and still cleaning up this late. She's unstoppable. But Chang-sik's not your average guy, right? He's got that knack for picking up vibes, and standing there watching her wash, he caught it. That same smell, that same feeling from the funeral home, creeping up on him again. Huh, that's odd. Did it stick to me from earlier? Nah, this isn't that. It's different, he puzzled, scratching his head. What's she up to? What happens when she's done? He couldn't shake it, mulling it over late into the night. Eventually, he went home and crashed. But sure enough, bam, sleep paralysis hit again. This doesn't make sense, he muttered, anxiety creeping in. He tried so hard to feel something when he got home. Anything. A bad spirit. A hint. But there was nothing. Not a trace. Am I just sick or something? He wondered, half serious by that point. A few days later, his hair's getting shaggy, so he heads back to the salon. While she's cutting, he's studying her. But still, zero. Nothing at all. This is unreal, he thought. She's got to be hiding something. She's too peculiar. Let's dive deeper into Chang-sik's wild tale, picking up right where we left off. So, Chang-sik had this nagging feeling at the salon, something he couldn't quite pin down, and he thought to himself, you know what? I've got to stick around today and figure this out. That's why he deliberately showed up after 5 p.m., strolling in with a casual, "Hey, how's the car treating you?" To kick things off smooth and easy, the hairdresser, cool as ever, replied, "Oh, it's running fine." And they just kept chatting from there, letting the conversation flow like old pals catching up. Then, out of nowhere, Chang-sik tossed out, "How about some fried chicken? Fancy a whole one." "Why?" "Well, just across the street from the salon, a stone's throw away, there was this little neighborhood joint frying up some crispy goodness." "You up for it?" he asked, and she shrugged with a smile. "Sure, it's dinner time anyway. Why not?" Playing it sly, Chang-sik, knowing full well where the place was, acted clueless and said, "Wait, where's that chicken spot again?" She pointed, "Right over there." And he jumped in with, "Perfect, I'll watch the shop. You go grab it." Before she knew it, she was out the door, and Chang-sik was left alone, sitting there with a sly grin. Truth is, he'd planned this little maneuver from the start. He wanted her gone so he could snoop around. Off she went, and he didn't waste a second, creeping over to the shampoo sinks like a detective on a mission. Thing is, even there, nothing hit him hard. No big vibe, no clear sign. He told me later, it was like when you shut a door and that faint knee smell sneaks through the cracks. Something was there, subtle, creeping up on me. His eyes wandered and bam, there it was, a back corner of the salon with this vibe like someone lived there. "Whoa, what's this hidden spot?" he muttered, stepping closer, his curiosity buzzing. He pulled aside a flimsy curtain and slid open a side door. Imagine his surprise when he stepped in and saw a narrow staircase staring back at him, flanked by stacks of plain white envelopes, the kind you'd send a letter in, all lined up neat and tidy. "Man, this is weird. What's with all these envelopes?" he whispered, peering ahead. Then he spotted it. A hulking metal box, about 5 feet wide, tall and deep, just sitting there like it owned the place. "This room's giving me the creeps. What's it for?" he thought. He knew he shouldn't be poking around someone else's space, but it wasn't like he was there to swipe cash. He just had to know what was in those envelopes, his mind racing with possibilities. Right then, the hairdresser waltzed back in, arms loaded with a piping hot fried chicken and 2 bottles of soju, Korean liquor, if you're new to it. "Well, all right, fair enough," Chang-sik shrugged, and they settled in, cracking open the bottles and tearing into the crispy chicken. A few local aunties trickled in, getting their hair done, and Chang-sik joined the fun, sipping and chatting away. The night rolled on. More aunties showed up, and soon it was a full-on gab fest. 2 more jumped in, and they were all laughing, swapping stories over drinks. Time slipped by, and as it got late, Chang-sik, feeling that warm buzz from the soju, couldn't help but blurt out, "Hey sis, I've gotta say, I really admire how you volunteer at the funeral home." She tilted her head, a little surprised, and shot back, "Wait, how'd you know about that?" He grinned. "Caught you in action last time I was at the university hospital funeral home. Had a buddy service to attend, and there you were." She chuckled. "Oh, so you're spying on my good deeds now, huh?" Still smiling, he said, "I saw you duck through this odd door, not the usual condolence spot, so I asked a worker, and they spilled the beans. Said you help out, doing kind stuff. That's pretty awesome." Her face didn't even twitch, staying calm as a still pond, and she dropped this bombshell. "Those envelopes? They've got hair in them." Chang-sik blinked, caught off guard. "Hair? Why'd you stuff hair in there?" he asked, half laughing. She fired back, cool as ever. "Well, why'd you go snooping in there?" He scratched his head. "All right, fair. When you stepped out for the chicken, I got bored, wandered over to the sinks, saw that side room, and peeked in. Looked way too big for just one person living alone, but I swear I didn't touch the envelopes. The idea of hair in envelopes? Totally bizarre to him. Tipsy from the soju, he mused aloud. What? You saving up clients' hair 'cause tossing it feels wasteful? She just shook her head. Nope, not that. And right there, it clicked for Chang-sik, hit him like a freight train. This woman wasn't empty, wasn't giving off nothing because she was blank. No, she was so massive, so overwhelming, he couldn't even sense her edges. It was like the air around him darkened, this colossal presence washing over him, and he thought, holy crap, this is something I've never felt in my whole life. It scared the daylights out of him. His legs started trembling under the table, this sudden, unshakable dread locking him in place. He couldn't push it away, couldn't shake it off. He didn't sleep a wink that night. Still reeling, he asked her, "Hey sis, what's the difference between a ghost and a god?" Trying to make sense of it, he added, "Like, a god's all powerful up there, right? And ghosts just drift around down here." She leaned in, her voice steady. "Nah, that's not it. Ghost or whatever, doesn't matter. If tons of people believe in it, that's what makes it a god." He nodded, kinda getting it. Huh, makes sense. So if the whole world worshipped some random spirit, that'd be a god too, right? She smiled faintly. Exactly. And I'm gonna be one. He blinked. Wait, how's a person supposed to become a god? She shrugged. People don't, simple as that. Then grinned wider. But you felt me just now, didn't you? Chang-sik froze, caught off guard again. You sensed me, right? That's why you're freaked out? She pressed, her eyes locked on his. He paused, swallowing hard, then admitted, "Yeah, sis, just now. I felt it. Couldn't before, but bam, it hit me." No point in lying, she had him pegged. "Keep your eyes open," she said, her tone chillingly calm. "People are gonna honor me, whether they know it or not." He nodded. "Sure, I guess." But inside he was thinking, "Honor you or not, that's your call, lady." Out loud he added, "Folks will probably sing your praises someday. Anyway, I'd better head out." He stood up ready to bolt, but then she reached out and grabbed his head with a quick, firm grip. Instantly, every ounce of energy drained from his body, like someone flipped a switch. He couldn't even wiggle a finger. How can the world just stop like this? He thought, panic surging as his mind spun out of control. His vision blurred, fading into a hazy fog, and then, snap, everything went black. When he came to, he couldn't hold back the scream tearing out of him. His whole body felt like it was being stabbed by a million needles, piercing him from every angle. 360 degrees of pure agony, relentless and insane. The pain was unbearable. He thrashed around, slamming into cold metal walls. Bang, bang, bang. No lights, no windows, just pitch black darkness. He reached out, fumbling, and his fingers brushed against hair. Oh God, I'm trapped in that metal box from the back room, he realized, dread sinking in deep. It was solid iron. No matter how hard he kicked or how loud he yelled, it wouldn't budge an inch. How can hair hurt like this? He gasped, sharp as needles digging into his skin, tearing at him. He lost count of how many times he passed out from the torment, waking up to more thrashing, more pain, until he started praying, desperation taking over. Chang-sik had dabbled in Buddhism before, spent time at temples, and in that haze, dream or not, he saw one of the 4 heavenly kings, those fierce guardians you spot at temple gates. Terrifying at first, but as it approached, This warm, comforting glow washed over him. Whoa, this scary figure's gentle, he thought, stunned, as it reached out and stroked his head, softly, soothingly, and then he snapped awake. Blinking hard, he couldn't believe it. The iron box was torn open, hair spilling out like a twisted waterfall. Legs weak, barely holding him up, he crawled out of the salon, half dragging himself. The hairdresser? Nowhere in sight. He made it home, collapsed in a chair, and that's when it hit him again. That feeling. Grabbing the little oil lamp she'd given him, he smashed it open. Under the oil, tiny chopped up strands of hair stared back at him. Why'd she give me this? Did she hand these out to everyone? He'd collected maybe 50 of them over time, even passed some to co-workers for promos. Rushing to the office, he broke theirs open too, and yup, hair in every single one. What the hell is this? Some kind of seed to make her a god? He wondered, chills running down his spine. I got out alive. I'm steering clear of that place. Bet she's scared of me now too, he told himself. Life went on, quiet for a bit, until his phone rang. It was her. His hands shook so bad he could barely hold it. Chang-sik, she said, voice steady. No matter how I look at it, I need you. I'll come get you soon. Stay healthy. And that was it. He quit car sales right then and there and bolted from town. So, there you have it, folks. Chang-sik's jaw-dropping saga. Doesn't it just give you goosebumps? He still says he's terrified thinking back on it. And honestly, who wouldn't be? What's next for him? Beats me, but I'm dying to find out. Stick around. We'll catch up with more wild stories soon. Till then, take care, stay safe, and see ya.